All right. Well, starting point. There you go. Gave me a little clap.
That's great.
Clap in there. Good Monday morning.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, good Monday morning.
Yep. Happy to be here. I know that this time of year is like your favorite when the weather starts turning cold.
It's great. You get up in the morning and it's great. And all the cars now have little temperature readings and things like that. And it was 42 degrees. And I was like, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're almost in the 30s.
Yes.
It's great.
Except, my thought is you wake up in the morning and it feels like the worst thing anybody's ever asked you to do to get out from under the covers. And
True.
I
know what that feels like too.
My toes are cold, my fingers are cold.
And until daylight savings, I don't like getting up in the dark.
Right.
I've never really liked it. I mean, you do it when you have to do it and it happens a lot.
Yeah, but it's not a fun experience.
I'm just not liking it. So when daylight savings is, I would much rather, it just does better for my soul, man. I would rather wake up with sunlight and even give up the end of the day.
I was going to say, because
I'll give up the end of the day anytime to have the morning sun. I would do it.
Nobody else.
Why,
maybe there's somebody else
day.
there.
You still want that long day.
Yeah, that extra hour at the end. But if you're a morning person, then that makes sense. And I am not a morning person. My brain wakes up in the middle of the day and stays on.
So you wanted to stay on, and why is the sun going down? I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's okay.
But we're here.
Yeah, I'll work through it sometime. I have feelings about that, but speaking of feelings.
Yeah.
We actually, yesterday was a cool message. I'm getting more and more excited for your book to actually be available so that I can read it, because I know a lot of this stuff is kind of coming out of it. And we talked kind of about, there was a lot about feelings and emotions and the way that God kind of shows us things and moves us through our emotions and the importance of actually looking at those and not just ignoring them. So you gave us kind of an intersection of sorts, or there was this decision to make, right? When we have feelings of emptiness or feelings that are really difficult. Mm-hmm. We can go in two directions. We can either go in the diversion direction, which would be another word would kind of be distractions. I'm just gonna go.
Good word. Yep.
Find whatever I can and just kind of throw it at the hole that's empty in me and see if it sticks and fills it. And reality is none of them are going to. Or the exploration route, which is the better option, where we're really, let's figure out how to find the right thing and fill up with it.
I feel like when we have these deep feelings and we are feeling the things we're feeling, we don't know what to do with them. Like many things in life, especially in a high, let's say fast-paced culture. Yeah. High pressure is what I want to say, and fast-paced. Yeah. Yep. We tend to rush through everything. Yeah. Everything gets rushed through.
That's very true.
I talked to a guy who's a counselor, and he said, you know what I do? And he described his job, and I was like, what do you do? He said, I slow people down. I was like, man.
That's a good way to look at it.
He kind of just looked at his whole practice as I slow people down. Yeah. And we understand what he meant by that. Right. Because there's no way to really explore unless we're like, okay, I'm committed to the process. This is going to take some time. It's going to take a little bit of effort. Right. Whereas that whole diversion thing, like you said, it's like, how fast can I get rid of this feeling so I can move on to the next thing? Yeah. And we don't do business at a deep level. Our culture is not set up for that. Right. We are ever since the 1800s, the United States, or maybe even before that with the Industrial Revolution in Britain, we then had that Industrial Revolution in America. And we became the pragmatic culture. We became the culture is get it done, make it practical, don't worry about anything else. This is about getting it done. Yeah. And that's where our culture is founded, and there's been a lot of success in that. Right. What has suffered is to slow down. How you really doing? Take a look. And I think to the extent that some people make fun of that process. Right. It's like, oh man, now you're going to get all psychological
feelies.
and touchy-feely.
Right.
But it's like, no, we are emotional beings that feel things, and there is a need for us to slow down and take a look.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's a need that God put in us on purpose.
Yeah.
I think like the purpose behind your book is to point to God in our kind of everyday normal things. So these emotions that we experience, the fact that we have emotion at all, even the really like pleasant kind, is the image of God on us, right? So he uses our emotions. Towards the beginning of the message, you talked about a fact that it seems that you have some negative feelings about gas stations and avoid them.
It's so crazy.
A little bit.
I started looking at this and I started kind of counting how many times, and I can remember all the times. I'm like, what is going on with me? You know what I
actually remember
you
my
just kind of
dad.
Take maybe it's more of risk. Maybe I like to take chances. It's like and then the little thing lights up. Like I got it.
How far past the E can we go? My dad's a little bit like that. I remember growing up, like every once in a while, my mom would get a call. He'd be like, I'm on the side of the road again. Okay, kids, everybody in the car.
Gotta get Dad. Dude, that's crazy.
But I think something that the way that you tied that in was like the gas light always comes on, right? Or like the check engine light. I was thinking of it again last night because my gas light was on and I was like, I don't want to go to the gas station. But like, you have to, because there's something that's turned on that's telling me like, if I don't address this situation, then I'm going to end up stuck on the side of the road, right? That's the point you were making. And kind of drew the comparison of our feelings are like those indicators. When something's happening in us, it's something that needs to be paid attention to. It's not something to just kind of like put a sticker over and like pretend it's not there. I know people who do that with their check engine light, and that's scary.
Like, wait a minute. I know. And you know, like you say, when we have these things that are indicators for us, I kind of, when we have an outburst, let's say, and we are not necessarily feeling like we're angry at that moment, but all of a sudden somebody says something and we snap, and all of a sudden why did I respond that way? So that's a red flag. So I look at all these red flags in my life and I'm like, okay, if I'm a little less patient, if I'm a little more angry, if I'm sad, if I'm depressed, if I'm feeling these things, man, those are red flags that are like, you have got to go to the symptom. And this is just the outworking of the symptom. And feelings are like that too. Like, what's going on to cause you that?
Right.
It's a hard question.
It is definitely a hard question. And I think a good friend of mine recently kind of challenged a group. It was actually at book club. He challenged our group to think about, like, feelings are never bad. Like, we say, like, oh, I'm sad. That's a bad feeling, you know? But, like, challenged us with the idea of a feeling can be unpleasant.
That's a good point.
But it's never a bad feeling.
That's a good point.
Because the feelings are really good, actually. They're things that give us pause and warn us to pause and say, like, okay, where is this coming from? Like you said, like, okay, I got really angry, and all that happened was they put regular milk instead of oat milk in my latte, you know? Why did that anger me on the level that it did? It's probably not about the coffee. Like,
exactly. You know, that happens to me. I mean, it happens to me quite often. I mean, I don't know, are you a person that feels things deeply?
I feel deeply. It usually doesn't come out like in
bursts, but you feel it.
I do feel things.
And you internalize it or whatever.
Yeah.
I was in the grocery store the other day looking for a strange product that my wife loves. Is just like Cremora or Coffee Mate. It's a powdered creamer. She just really has grown up on that and loves it, and they just have it in one section in the grocery store. I looked over the whole grocery store. I looked in the coffee aisle. I looked everywhere, and I started getting increasingly, you know, kind of
frustrated,
irritated,
angry,
you know. And when I walked up I would ask 3 different people. They're like, we don't even know what that is. We don't know where it is. Like, you work here.
Right.
Like I asked 3 employees.
You don't know?
You stock shelves. And I didn't say anything. And they're like, you're going to have to go to the front desk, like service. And I'm like,
okay.
I got to stand in line at service just to get this right. So I felt myself getting increasingly irritated. The one said, oh, you can't find it? And I was like, that is why I'm in line. And that's what I said. And I tried to be nice, and I smiled afterwards, like, oh, that was really an angry, it was an angry response.
Yeah.
She didn't know it. I knew it. And I was like, something's up.
Yeah.
Something's up. You know what I mean? And so I had to go in and say, why am I so frustrated right now when I don't really have this thing to be frustrated about?
Yeah.
Something's going on deeper.
Yep.
I have to ask that.
Right.
You know?
Right. And do that exploration time. The thing is that time, it is a lot harder than just throwing something over the feeling in order to try to suppress it, right? It's a lot harder to go into that exploration stage. But there's a concept that I've heard about recently. It's called the window of tolerance. The idea is that like as we're in different levels of stress in our life, our like window of tolerance either grows or shrinks. And so if we're in a really high stress season, our window of tolerance for extra stress or surprises or
doing
unexpected
life, just doing life, because that
becomes way smaller.
It's a really, really insightful.
And so then we act out more, right? Or like we get like worked up and the outbursts happen more quickly. Whereas if you're like in a good place, you've done the exploration, you've been in like a season of I'm really dealing with things and figuring it out and in a good place. The window of tolerance might open up a little bit, and then when you can't find the creamer, it doesn't immediately send you into like struggle. You have like a longer period of time that you can deal with that high stress.
Love that.
I think it's a helpful thing to think about, because it's like when I'm less capable of managing stress or inconvenience or different things that are happening, why is that, and how do I solve it?
And I think all of these things, and that's the whole point of yet again an everyday thing, and that's our feelings. They point us to God. And even for people who are unsure of if there is a God, or unsure of who God is, or if he's involved, or whatever that looks like, man, God has placed that there so that we sense this thing. And even people who don't have a relationship with God through Christ right now, they'll sense this, something's missing.
Right.
They can win all the awards they want. They can have all the money they want. They can try and fill that diversion box all they want with everything. And it's just going to keep getting more and more and more. And it's like, man, it's just not working.
And it becomes a good place to kind of point out to people of like, how do you explain the fact that we as humans have emotion? I mean, there are physiological responses that happen in our body that like create the emotion. That's not a necessary thing. I feel like the existence of emotion in general just kind of points to Creator, to a God, like, because where does feeling happen in like nature? Like why, like where would that just pop up out of nowhere? It kind of becomes an apologetic for.
That's my point.
God.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Everything in this book, honestly, is an apologetic, but done in a sense of sensory data,
right.
And like sensing the supernatural or sensing something else out there, spiritual, as opposed to an apologetic book that talks about the proofs of why we read scripture and why we can trust it, the resurrection of Jesus, all that stuff, which is really helpful too. This is more like, man, God is right there. He is very near and very close in getting your attention. And emotions and feelings are probably one of the primary ways. And when we don't respond to it in a correct way, we do fall into problems. I mean, we talk about mental health, but is not mental health related so much to emotional health that it's almost hard to differentiate?
Well, I sometimes think like, is mental health the best way to say it? Because, I think of mental health is like thought capacity. That goes more towards like intelligence in my mind. I'm kind of like emotional health might be a better place to think, but all of those things, like the intelligence piece of us, the emotional piece of us, the spiritual pieces of, we can't separate any of them, even the physical pieces, like, you know, our bodies. That's they're all so together.
And we talked about the soul yesterday, and we talked about how, man, a depleted soul is going to lead to problems. And to the extreme, but not far off, self-harm. And then not far off from that is others' harm, because our soul is so empty. We are depleted of the sustenance of life that I think is most important to who we are as a whole being. And often it's forgotten about.
We point to those things in some of the areas that we as a church feel really passionate about, with the mental health and the habitual health and the family health of our community.
Huge things.
Those things are like those things become affected very quickly in each of our lives when we're not caring for our souls and our...
I 100% agree, and I think that's really what Jesus was getting at when he kind of brought back, you know, when he replied, I am the bread of life. This is in John 6. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry again. Then he reverts back to what he said to the woman at the well right after that. He says, whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. So he's kind of bringing back, John is bringing back a reference to the woman at the well when he says, look, living water, that's I'm going to give it to you. But he also says, listen, I am the true bread that gives life. And that's going to fill your soul. You know what I mean? You can eliminate the hunger of your soul with this, the thirst of your soul with the living water. So you got the bread of life and the living water. And I really believe that Jesus uses those as an analogy to fill the soul.
Well, and it gives us such a clear picture of, like, when I am thirsty, I get a headache. When I'm hungry, I for sure get hangry. You know, I also get a headache. Like, there are needs that, like, and what a loving, caring God that he fills those needs, you know?
That's
like,
right. That's right.
He created us with those things. He could have stopped there, but instead he said, I'm going to meet you in those needs and be the answer to those needs that you have. And we saw it physically in the wilderness with the Israelites when he's literally giving them bread and water out of nowhere.
Man. That's right.
And then we see it spiritually as well, through Christ, through the Holy Spirit. And it's really cool.
It's really great. That's good. That's good. Good stuff, good insight, and it's honestly a good way to live. And it can be difficult, and sometimes you just need some objective party, whether it's a counselor or whether it's a trusted friend, a family member, a pastor, or whatever, to just say, I got to do some business here, man, and don't know what to do. You know? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look.
Designed for that exact thing. We're designed for community.
Yeah, we sure are. And honestly, I said yesterday, and sometimes when we dig into those things and really explore what's going on, it takes honesty. It takes humility. And I threw in the word hard work. Because sometimes it's hard to do. Push yourself. Oh, man. Okay.
It's really hard. But it's worth it. And that's kind of the crux of the thing. You know, it's worth it. What you find on the other side is freedom. Is freedom from the like depths of whatever emptiness you're feeling, and life in God to the full, which is really
love
cool.
that. Love that. Yeah.
All right.
It's good, man. Thanks a lot. Thank you bringing up some deep stuff.
Thanks for preaching in a way that made it possible.
Right on.
Appreciate it. All right, y'all. Have a great week. We will see you next week.
Yep, next week.
All right.